Hi, we're at Larian Studios in Belgium. Right this moment they're working on the Dragon Commander game, which is an interesting combination of several genres at once. There is a strategic mode with a large, beautiful global map, diplomacy with elements of a role-playing game, and action with a dragon that flies over a battlefield. The story begins with the murder of the King of Rivellon, the main character's father, and the young heir finding himself on the outskirts of the country, which is suffering from discord and repressions unleashed by the Empress Aurora. At the same time, the prince is a flaming knight himself, so he's able to transform into that very dragon. The main goal of the gamer will be to unite the 6 races: elves, dwarves, imps, undead, lizards, and humans, in a common struggle against despotic Aurora and bring the situation in Rivellon back to peace and harmony. Meanwhile, the events of the game unfold completely separately from the well-known chronology of the Divinity universe. Thus, the game creators have cleverly saved themselves from the potential plotline mismatches and have fully devoted themselves to realizing an interesting concept without having to adhere to the mythical internal canons, which usually only hinder the reach of the imagination.
Dragon Commander is kind of a genre mix because it mixes different styles of playing. You have on the one hand, you have flying with your dragon and fighting with it, which requires some skill. On the other hand, you have all the strategy components. You need to command your fleets, you need to tell them which targets to attack, you need to say which bases you want to build, so everything you would expect from a real-time strategy game. And then on the other hand, it still mixes also role-playing elements because you have to make many choices. You have to make diplomatic choices, you have to make romantic choices, fleet decisions also. And one of the cool parts of the game is that there's almost a guarantee that each choice has a consequence. And consequences, one of the ways these are translated in the game, is in a form that you get a card. It's like a Magic the Gathering card if you want. And when you play those cards, you can change the tide of combat. You can, for instance, get the medieval equivalent of nuclear missiles by getting a card, or you can get all the elves to join you in combat by playing one of those cards, or you can actually convince a princess that cheating on her wasn't that bad by playing a card.
The whole concept of the game can be subdivided into 4 major components. The ship. On board the Raven cruiser, the main character communicates with ambassadors of various races, consults with his generals, has drinks at a bar, establishes connections, takes care of his personal life, and exposes court intrigues. Global map. Here the issues of strategic planning are dealt with. The actions of allies and enemies are observed, and redistribution of troops and resources takes place. Battlefield. Here one deals with tactical management of the navy and construction of siege engines and a base. At any given moment, the character can descend from the skies and take part in a battle in the form of a dragon, and then fly back up to the sky and continue planning the attack. Cards. All decisions made by the character and their consequences are interpreted in the form of playing cards. They are awarded for diplomatic achievements and can play a key role in solving both military and political issues.
So the strategy component of the game takes place on 2 levels. There's first the overall level where you have to decide which countries you're going to attack, why you want to attack them, because maybe they have some minerals or resources that you're interested in. And then there's the actual strategy in combat, where it's more about tactical decisions. Where do you want your fleets to deploy? What types of fleets do you need to be able to defeat your enemy? So control happens at multiple layers. You have, on the one hand, you have a top-down view where you can issue commands in an RTS mode, and then you can also actually from within the 3D environment issue commands to your units to gain a maximum tactical advantage.
Regarding the role-playing elements, Dragon Commander will not have the standard schemes of distributing points between skills. The development system is significantly more subtle. It is based on a deck of playing cards, which a gamer receives for all sorts of achievements. For example, you did the dwarves a favor, and in return, they exposed you to some new technology. Or you helped the elves in some way, and receive an elite unit of elvish fleet. All these bonuses are fruits of actions taken by the character on the way to the victory, and the possible options are numerous. Dragon Commander promises to become a unique game for every user, since everyone will be playing it differently.
Dragon Commander, we tried to put in a real choice and consequence system. Now a lot of people say that, of course, so it sounds a little bit like bullshit, but we have a wall here which you can see, and you will see all the consequences that are there for choices. But the problem is that we needed something to link it to the strategy and the dragon combat. And so somewhere somebody had the idea that a card system would be a good idea to link that to one another, because in the cards you can basically have a lot of consequences visualized. Dragon Commander also features a card system. You gain these cards as a kind of favors that people give you, and you can use them in combat. So how do you gain a card? For instance, you decided to help the imps in doing something which was tremendously upsetting for the dwarves, and the imps say, well, as a reward we are going to give you the access to nuclear missile technology, or at least the medieval equivalent of it. And then you get a card, and you can choose when you play this card. So you say you can use these cards sometimes in combat, you can sometimes use them aboard the Raven, which is a kind of a central hub, or also in your strategy map.
Because the game revolves around the heir to the throne, family life will be a part of the plot. After all, every prince needs a princess. Dragon Commander will have 6 princesses, one representing each race. Elves, dwarves, imps, and the rest will be offering their brides for various reasons, some as a gift, others to acquire a convenient leverage to influence the character. In addition, the princess will surely have her own cranks and a story to unravel. This is an elvish princess. When she just sets her foot on the ship, she's the epitome of innocence, so delicate and inexperienced. But she almost immediately runs into a situation. The dwarves, in order to honor your bride, throw a big party with meat and wine, the proper way. But the elf princess is vegetarian and does not eat meat at all. You will face a choice, either to bring her to the banquet and make her eat meat, or to say, okay, let's not go there if you don't want to. This will naturally anger the dwarves and engender problems with them. But if Lohana tastes the meat, she will love the taste, and the next step for her will be to sample the wine. In this way, you'll be able to humanize her and turn her into a diplomat and a full-fledged aide, or make her even more pure and inspired, thus disrespecting the dwarves. There is also an undead princess. At first she looks horrifying and also suffers from depression. Her dream is to come back to life and become a normal girl. But the paradox is that her whole race, the undead, are quite happy with their existence and are not willing to be revived for ideological purposes. This is precisely the conflict. If you take her side, you will lose support of an entire race, and vice versa. If you help the princess, she turns into an extremely hot gal, looking like Eve, with her forbidden fruit in hand. But this is not an easy path, and if you decide to follow the undead lead, you will be able to find a compromise, albeit a rather creepy one. The princess will turn into a mechanical goddess made out of gold. Strange though it may seem, apart from the half-naked princesses, there are other characters on the ship too. For instance, the generals. These guys represent completely different races, including the unrecognized ones. Thus, there is one orc among the military commanders, who is nothing but a headache. The idea of the game creators is that the personalities of the generals are based on the characters from our recent history. One clearly stands for the dictator, Gaddafi, another for Hugo Chavez, the third Bin Laden, the fourth half Vladimir Zhirinovsky, half Hillary Clinton. The connection with reality makes games more convincing, and familiar images, as we know, are underlying any successful invented universe. The gamer will have these general guys at his disposal. Here is, for example, a lizard, Edmund. He's a racist. He hates all races, and you can either support his nationalistic sentiments or try to make him more tolerant. It won't be easy, because the only reason he respects even the main character is because he is half dragon. All dialogues follow the same scenario. Okay, you're a dragon, so I will obey you, but let's not bring up your other half. The fact of the matter is that the generals are not merely advisors, but can provide support on the battlefield. This is why good relations with them are critically important for a gamer. One of the main features of Dragon Commander will be the option to take part in a battle as a dragon. Upon hitting one button, the camera abruptly drops from an aerial view to the altitude of a dragon's flight, and the gamer starts taking matters into his own hands. As they say, if you want something done right, do it yourself.
Okay, so you use the dragon in combat as a kind of a leader who leads by example, so he aids your fleets in defeating the enemy. He has a whole bunch of extra powers that he can use to do this, to give you a tactical advantage. For instance, you can stun lock a whole bunch of enemies so that your fleet can completely destroy them, or you can use your dragon to teleport units across the field and so forth. And to get access to these upgrades, you have to invest aboard the Raven and talk to people who hold special technology and magic to give it to you so that your dragon can access these upgrades.
What Larian Studios will produce in the end is impossible to predict. The authors showed us the version of the game which is still full of imperfections and rough drafts. But if one forgets these imperfections, looks at the broader picture and gives rein to one's imagination, it's already possible to say that this is a very promising game, filled with original creative features. We can't say that we haven't seen anything like this before. For instance, there was Brutal Legend, with its flights over a battlefield. There was also Dungeon Keeper, with an opportunity to, at the height of the fun, assume a role of any subordinate and fix everything. On the other hand, all fresh ideas should be presented very carefully, and in the case of Dragon Commander, we can already tell that the developers are realizing all their ideas in the right way. Dragon Commander will be released in the first quarter of 2013. So far, only the PC platform has been confirmed, but the game was demonstrated to us on Xbox 360. So Larian Studios have a great chance to make the most original strategy in the history of consoles.
Especially for Канобу.